Well, now for some very welcome good news. Graham Norton will be taking to the air for his very first show on our sister station, Virgin Radio, this Saturday. The presenter, comedian, author, and actor will be bringing his trademark charm and wit to weekend mornings from 9:30 a.m. Well, that's what we're expecting, Graham. I know you're there on the line. Uh,
I am.
are you going to provide it, and what else besides?
I'm very excited. I was in the building last night doing a kind of dummy run,
Modern,
and
isn't it?
sorry,
I said modern, isn't it?
oh, it's so modern. I mean, I feel like a Bond baddie in my lair, surveying London. It's great. But the show will be very close to really what I was doing on Radio Two, which is just me playing some music, rambling on. My old mate Maria McCurlin will be there, and hopefully, we'll get some listener interaction and feedback from them, and also we'll have guests as well. People will be wandering by to talk to me about various things.
Well, maybe once lockdown ends, at least. Your departure, you mentioned it's going to be very like what you were doing on Radio 2. You left there after 10 years, I think, and it was pretty highly publicised, your decision to do that. Why did you decide to leave?
It was kind of a moment of madness. I don't really, it was certainly not my plan. I was not planning on going anywhere. The only thing I was thinking was I might stop, I might wind down the Radio 2 show and just, walk away from it. That was the only thing that was sort of in my head. Because, that show I'd been doing, as you say, I'd been doing it for 10 years. It had sort of got as big as it was going to get. It wasn't going to get any bigger. And sort of doing it in lockdown had kind of taken a lot of the joy out of it, and you had to climb 6 flights of stairs to the studio. It's like I'm making this up, but these were the factors in my decision. And then I was selling a book last September, and I went in to see Chris Evans, who does the breakfast show on Virgin,
Oh,
and
yes, we
he
know
was
him
sort of
well.
teasing me about going to Virgin. Oh, come here, come here, and Chris seemed so happy. It was a beautiful sunny day. I could see my house from the studio, and I just thought, actually, this would be quite nice. But I didn't think anything more of it. But then Virgin rang afterwards and said, "We're serious. Would you like to come?" And I think partly it was sort of the excitement of doing a strip show across the weekend, doing Saturdays and Sundays, but also it was just sort of being my age and somebody wanting me. I think I
I
was
know
just
that
sort
feeling. That's pretty much why I left.
what, you like me? Okay, but and it's amazing how how sort of persuasive that is. That somebody's just being nice and saying, "Would you like to come?" And you're going, "Yes, I would."
But
So
you
instead of
mentioned
stopping, I've doubled my workload.
yes. Did you wake up after you'd said yes and think, oh, how did that happen?
Well, I have to say, last Sunday I woke up thinking, "Oh, I won't be in bed this time next Sunday." So yeah, that is going to be a shock to the system. I think doing Saturday and Sunday, but equally, I never quite understood why at Radio Two we didn't do Saturday and Sunday, because you build up all this stuff on the Saturday, you get lots of interaction with the listeners, and then it just goes away, by the time next week comes, it's too late to follow up on the woman who was
Mm.
painting her hall a funny green or whatever. So hopefully there'll be a sense of, if you listen on a Saturday, you're probably listening on a Sunday as well.
Um, Graham, you mentioned Chris was so happy, and Chris is, known for his jauntiness. But I wondered if it also reflected a sense that morale was low at the BBC. It's been quite a difficult year for them. They've been in the headlines a lot. It's been a very difficult year for sort of the top line presenters at the BBC in terms of lots of things changing in terms of what you're allowed to do, what you're allowed to earn, and so on and so forth. Did none of that play into your decision?
The only thing that was part of the decision was, I kind of thought, oh, if I stop doing this, I'll get off that list. I won't be on that list anymore. Um, the kind of high earners list, which I don't like. I didn't like being on it. Hey, now I'm not. So so to that extent, it made me go, but it didn't really. It was just, that was sort of a bonus of leaving. It wasn't the biggest driving force. And in terms of being at the BBC, I've never felt, I think the reality of being at the BBC, certainly my reality of being BBC, maybe yours was different, that I didn't feel that kind of much in a straitjacket about what I could say or what I could do. The tweeting rule, I don't really tweet about anything really, so that didn't affect me. Yeah, so I those things didn't bother, and also I'm still very much at the BBC. I've still got a chat show. I still do Eurovision. I'm still on RuPaul's Drag Race. So all I've done is walk away from Radio Two, and that was to do with the stairs.
But it was to do with the stairs and also the earnings list. Is it because you're embarrassed about how well paid top entertainers are, or is it just a sort of instinctive? Ooh, it's like being naked in front of the nation.
Well, I think it is that thing. None of us like talking about money. At a dinner party, you talk about all sorts of things. People tend not to bring up their wages. That's it's not seen as acceptable to be discussed in a public forum. Um, and there's something. And also the list is so. I mean, it's rubbish. The list doesn't mean anything. It doesn't actually tell you what anyone's earning at the BBC because of the way people are paid, which is why there are so many radio people on that list. So it's pointless. The good thing about it, I would say, and I think going forward this will become a better thing, is that if they weren't publishing that list, I don't think there'd be nearly as many women on that list. I think when they published it first, I think everyone was properly embarrassed that there were so few women on the list. So I think that's changed over the last few years, and soon I think in the next few years that list will become much more diverse, which has to be a good thing, and is kind of because of the list. So I don't think politicians brought that list in for those reasons. I think they just wanted to know what famous people earned. It was like just legisla- legislating for gossip. But in fact, I think it has had a kind of knock-on benefit effect.
Now, I imagine that lots of listeners will have been watching your chat show on BBC One. I wondered how strange it's been. I mean, you talked about making the radio show during the pandemic, and not being able to go to the studio all the time, and or at least not having guests and so on. But it must be even weirder when you're presenting it on television. You've done it from home. You've spoken to guests like Dolly Parton over Zoom, from a near empty studio, and guests socially distanced, on other occasions without your famous red sofa. How do you make that work and still feel like it's an incredibly sort of familiar and comfortable, chatty experience?
Well, I think the first lockdown, when everything shut down, and no, we just didn't know what we were doing. That was when we did a kind of version in my back bedroom, and that was hell. I mean, that was just awful. We had a kind of green screen, and I mean, it was it was just me talking to laptops in my back bedroom. You think this is worse than Gogglebox? At least in Gogglebox, they're
Oh,
they're watching actual
excruciating.
television. um, so when we came back in the autumn, and Studio Works in the old TV center had kind of figured out how to operate that building safely for everybody. So we were able to go back into the studio, and that is so. Although it's very awkward that there's no audience, it's so much nicer than doing it in the back bedroom by myself. It's just great to be, there's sound people, there's lighting people, camera guys, and it's also employing all those people. So it feels great to be in the studio. We had a little semi-audience for a while, kind of about, I don't know, about 70 people, and normally we have 600 people. And 600 people is great. I mean, the 70 people, you just felt sorry for them, which is never a good relationship between performer and audience, where you're on
Well, it's
stage and you
probably
pity you pity the audience.
yes, it's probably worse the other way around, though, isn't it?
Well, bless them for coming. I mean, I found it kind of moving. You'd see them sitting there, with their masks on, sitting miles away from each other, but still they came because they were so hungry for that that thing of just sitting in rows and watching a musician sing or hearing some jokes. I found that kind of heartbreaking that people would jump through so many hoops just to have a kind of terrible, diluted, watered down version of that experience.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I'm listening to you say that, and I'm thinking, here you are, one of our, top performers in the UK, and yet I do think that there is that side to you where you don't really understand the appeal of show business, as it were. I mean, you came to London very ironically, and I'm leaping ahead to, a different part of the interview in a way, but you came to London seeking anonymity, which is something I really understand. Both of us having grown up in small town Ireland, and that sense that everyone knows what you're doing and everyone's watching in a way, even
Yeah.
even when you're not that interesting, as I felt I wasn't, but so you came looking for anonymity, and here you are with exactly the opposite thing. So do you think that there is a sort of dichotomy at the heart of Graham Norton?
I mean, certainly, because you just kind of muddle through your life, you just make decisions on a day-to-day basis, i.e., I'm moving to Virgin. How did that decision get made? Um, but it was only kind of when you look back and you remember who you were, and then you think, how did that happen? How did that guy end up doing this? And there was a performer in me, there was a show off in me, and also I suppose, although I'm very known, um, I think I'm still quite good at protecting my privacy. I don't I don't do kind of reality shows, or I don't do at home for Hello Magazine, all those sorts of things. So I think you can do both things. You can be a public figure and be quite private, and that's what I try to do. Every now and again, something happens that means people do know something about your private life, but by and large, I try not to. I mean, and not because I think, not because I'm sort of part of a cult, or running a
Now, go
commune
on,
for
tell me,
witches or
reveal
something.
all.
Yeah, but just because I don't find my life that interesting, so I'm sort of baffled by anybody else who would think it was going to be interesting. I mean, occasionally I get paparazzi outside the house. Like, there are so many pictures of me just walking a dog. that's that's it. And I'm sort of amazed that still I'll go outside and there will be some guy in a car with blacked out windows, taking pictures of me walking a dog. There you go.
But for someone, I mean, it is very hard to keep your private life a secret, or at least, not public property when you're well known. We all have experience of that, and you've managed it an awful lot better than most. Is it something that really, really matters to you? In other words, has it changed the way you live your life? The possibility that details of it could be revealed. Uh, or is it just that you're naturally a dog walker and do very little else?
Well, I kind of am naturally a dog walker. And also, you know what? You soon figure out, don't you? That if I go to that restaurant, there are probably going to be paparazzi outside it. If I go to this restaurant, there won't be. Um, so I think, or if you go shopping if you go shopping on Bond Street, if you go shopping in Notting Hill, you probably will get photographed. So if you don't go to those places, then you don't. Um, I think the danger. I think what happens is, I think when people are starting out, they want publicity. They want to kind of increase their profile, and so they do things around their own life. And then by the time they've realized they don't like it, it's sort of too late to kind of shut the door, because you invited everybody in. And I suppose I was lucky that when I started working in TV and I had any sort of profile, I was sort of in my mid 30s by then. So, I had friends, I had a kind of I had a life outside of show business. And I think that was helpful. I do feel very sorry for kids, particularly kids who come up through reality shows and stuff like that, because their life is the whole thing. And you see how damaging that is for them, and kind of um, the awful things that happen to them, because, it's very hard to cope with, particularly because, back when I was starting out, you would get a nasty review in a paper, or someone would say something snarky in a column about you. But now, if you want to, you can sit in bed all day scrolling through Twitter, having people saying, really, really horrible things about you, which must be hard to take. I don't know how those young people manage it.
Do you read comments about yourself?
I do. And actually, I say I don't know how those people manage it. They really don't. They really don't bother me. Um, uh, I mean, I will scroll. I mean, I'll scroll through them, or or if there's a review of a book or something, I will want to read it, whether it's good or bad. I don't want to be ambushed by friends, kind of stroking your arm, going, "You okay?" Going, what don't I know? So I think it's best to be it's best to be informed about what's out there, so that people don't kind of have one over on you.
Indeed. This is Mariella Frostrup on Times Radio. I'm talking to Graham Norton ahead of his debut this weekend on Virgin Radio. You do seem to have quite a thick skin, then, which is not particularly prevalent in show business. To what do you ascribe it? I mean, I know that as a child, you moved around a lot, because of your dad's job, and I think in a way that sort of builds up. I think you went to 13 schools, was it? Or moved to 13 different houses? I
Yeah,
went
no,
to
13
11
different houses.
schools.
I mean,
It does build you up into just being a bit more resilient in a way, doesn't it?
I think you've got to be resilient. You've got to roll with the punches, and also you've got to learn to keep your head down, because you're the new kid, which can go either way. We all remember the new kids joining our schools, and some of them were like we were. Some of them were like celebrities when they arrived because they were new kids, and some of them you just thought, oh no, and you could almost smell blood as they
Mm.
walked in. So learning to navigate that was a thing, but also I think you get a thicker skin as you get older, don't you? At least I have, I think. I
Saggier.
certainly baggier. There's a lot more skin. I can insulate myself in it like a fleshy duvet. Um, but I think that's part of it. It's just caring less. I think. Where and also, you say people in showbiz have thin skins, but yet they have to have thick skins. I mean, because it's such a horrible business. There's a lot. Hashtag be kind. Um, Hashtag be kind isn't a show business concept. You can't give someone a good review if they're in a play just to be kind. You will say they suck in that play. Don't waste your money. If you go for an audition, when they say you didn't get the part, it's you have to take it personally because they have rejected you. That's who's been rejected, and you have to develop a thick skin, or really you're in the wrong game.
Mm. Your most recent novel, Home Stretch, reads really like a sort of love letter to Ireland, despite some of the darker parts. And it tells the story of a gay man leaving behind 1980s Ireland for London, but he never forgets home. Is it your most personal excursion in fiction?
I suppose it is. It's the book where I think, when I started writing fiction, my big concern was, oh, Graham Norton off the telly wrote this book, and you don't want to get in the way between the reader and the book. So I deliberately kept anything that might resonate with the reader about me out of those books. And so this was the first time that I allowed a bit of me in. So one of the main characters is gay, a bit younger than me, but a kind of around my age, and does go to New York, does come to London, goes to places I've been. that that was my extensive research. Like, where do I know? Oh, here. So there was some of that, and the love letter to Ireland aspect was kind of accidental. That wasn't meant to happen, but because that main character he leaves Ireland and he's gone for a long, long time. When he came back, the idea in my head as a writer was that he was going to be reunited with his family and he was going to experience that. But of course, then you realize, oh, but he's not just meeting his family, he's meeting this new Ireland. He's meeting this country that's changed out of all recognition. And so that became part of the novel, part of the story.
When did you realize? Because I mean, you did no writing, really, up until you hit 50. I mean, no serious writing, if you will.
Mm.
And then you embraced novel writing as though you were a natural, or you are a natural. I read your first novel. I haven't read Home Stretch yet, but I loved it, Holding. And
Oh, bless you.
it, yeah, no, but it was a great book, and to be fair, you don't expect that generally, do you? When someone who's never written a novel until midlife and has pursued a completely different career suddenly comes out with one. So was it always a sort of an ambition that you'd nurtured secretly, perhaps because it was too serious to let out?
It was an ambition that was certainly always there, but but also so daunting, and the thought of it seemed so time consuming that I just didn't know how I would ever go about that. And that wasn't to do with because at work. When I should have written my kind of debut novel in my kind of 20s, some sort of coming of age story, blah blah blah. Um, I was out, or drunk or hungover. I certainly, I mean, these people who write novels, these men in their 20s, I'm just thinking, how did you do that? How did you find the time to write a novel in your 20s? Because, you're just busy. Um, so basically, I got around to it when I was in my 50s. That's when I was sort of sedate enough to have days hangover free to be able to write a novel.
So, which of the jobs that you currently do, including the very exciting, arrival at Virgin Radio this weekend, which of them could you least live without, least happily
Ooh,
live without?
it's hard. Eh, I could live without any of them, really. I mean, that's kind of, that's what you always kind of think. What would life be like if I lost all these jobs? If I just got cancelled tomorrow, would I be okay? And I think I would. I think I'd kind of, I wouldn't like it, but I'd muddle through. Um, the- and what's and what's difficult to choose is they all give you different things. The books are kind of the most considered, the most kind of selfish things I do in a way. In that it's just me in a room, kind of creating those worlds. The TV is kind of probably the highest profile, so you get the kind of the biggest buzz off that. But then there's the immediacy of the radio, which I love. I love with the radio that you just you rock up and suddenly you're talking to people, and I also really enjoy playing the music, and I have fun in that it's more immediate. TV is a much kind of slower beast, and it takes a lot more production and meetings and all of that stuff. So I don't. Yeah, I'm refusing to choose. I'm refusing.
Goodness, you're a very difficult guest, if I might say. Thank goodness you're such an excellent presenter. Um, you did once say, I think, on Desert Island Discs about 15 years ago that you thought you were a very bad interviewer. I'm accusing you of being a bad guest. Have you changed your mind about that? You must surely have kind of upped the ante, don't you think?
Well, I think I can chat to people. I'm quite good at chatting to people, and I'm quite inconsequential. That banter with people, but a proper kind of in-depth interview. No, I think that's what's. I mean, and I think some people who are good at those aren't very good at kind of chitty chat nonsense. So I think you find you find your level, and you hope there's a market for it. So that's kind of where I'm at. Occasionally I'll have it normally it's to do. I frustrated if I've got a guest where you kind of think you've got so much more to offer than this silly interview is going to expose. You've got an incredible story. Either it's a part of their life story or something to do with their work, and that's when you feel like, oh, I wish the show was different. I wish I could do a kind of a longer form, in depth interview, but but as I say, I think there are other people who do that on other mediums where people do that. So I do what I do, and I enjoy it. I like doing what I do, because I suppose I find it easier than doing a big long form serious interview.
What have you got lined up for this Saturday? Tempt me.
Well, this Saturday, now I have to remember. Um,
If
I
you've not written
think
it down on a piece of paper, I have to write everything down.
no, I'm chatting to on Saturday. I'm chatting to Faye Ripley and Ralph Little, and on Sunday I'm talking to Kirsty and Phil of Occasion, and Ant Middleton, who's a daring do. He's one of those, he's a Bear Grillsy person. He knows how to survive. So we'll talk to him. My good friend Maria will be on, and lots of good music. The music at Virgin is great. I know I sound surprised, like you think I'd have known this before I joined, but I really like the music at Virgin. So I'm sure you hear it in the lift as you're going up.
I do hear it in the lift, and I occasionally play it in the car, and I may well play you in the car at the weekends, occasionally when I'm not listening to Times Radio. What's the first record you're going to play, Graham Norton?
Well, I thought I knew what it was, but then I was talking to the producer yesterday, and he didn't mention it. So I so now I'm not sure. So I won't say anything in case it's not that record. I
Goodness
don't
me,
want
you're
to
going to have to
I don't
learn
want to
to
upset
assert
my producer
yourself.
at this early stage.
Graham Norton, very wise move, probably. Thank you very much. You can hear the Graham Norton Show on Virgin Radio this and every Saturday and Sunday morning from 9:30 to 12:30. Welcome to the family, Graham.